The story of Cassie Howard, as unfolded in the television series Euphoria, is a heartbreaking and deeply intricate portrait of a young woman adrift whose sense of self is almost entirely built upon the shaky foundation of male approval. To understand Cassie is to look beyond the dramatic outbursts, the romantic entanglements, and the seemingly endless cycle of poor decisions. It is to trace a direct line from a profound childhood wound, the absence of a reliable, loving father, to her present-day chaos. Her journey is a case study in how a pathological need for male validation, often simplified as daddy issues, can dictate a person's entire life, warping their understanding of love, self-worth, and their own identity into a desperate plea for someone to finally see her, to choose her, and to tell her she is enough. The root of the crisis lies in her father's abandonment. Cassie's dad was not just absent, he was a spectacularly flawed figure whose presence was defined by addiction, inconsistency, and emotional neglect before he vanished completely. For a young girl, a father is meant to be the first mirror in which she sees herself reflected as valuable, worthy, and loved. Cassie's mirror was cracked, offering back a distorted image of someone who was only conditionally noticed, often in the midst of drama or when she was performing the role of the good girl in a dysfunctional family. This early lesson was devastatingly clear: male attention is both the most valuable currency in the world and terrifyingly unstable. Love is not a steady, reliable force but something that can be withdrawn at any moment, leaving you hollow. This created what psychologists might call an anxious attachment style, a blueprint for relationships where she is perpetually in a state of worry about abandonment, leading her to cling desperately to any form of connection, no matter how unhealthy. Consequently, Cassie's entire identity became an offering, a performance curated specifically for the male gaze. She learned to equate her worth with her desirability. Her body, her kindness, her compliance, all became tools to secure the validation she was starved of as a child. We see this in her relationship with McKay, where she molds herself into his ideal, absorbing his anxieties and ambitions as her own, only to be crushed when he, grappling with his own masculinity, fails to provide the unwavering affirmation she needs. Her sense of self is so fragile that without a boyfriend reflecting back a flattering image, she feels she ceases to exist. This is why breakups are not merely sad events for Cassie, they are existential catastrophes. When McKay pulls away, it isn't just a relationship ending, it is a repeat of her father's abandonment, a confirmation of her deepest fear that she is inherently unlovable. The void that opens up is so terrifying that she must immediately fill it with another source of validation, leading to impulsive and often self-destructive decisions. This pathological need escalates dramatically in her infamous entanglement with Nate Jacobs. Nate is, in many ways, the monstrous embodiment of everything Cassie fears and craves. He is emotionally unavailable, manipulative, and possessive, a chilling echo of her father's unreliable nature. Yet, he is also from a family that presents an image of stability and male authority she desperately yearns for. Pursuing Nate and clinging to him despite his brutal treatment is the peak of her illness. It's not love, it's a compulsive reenactment of her childhood trauma. Psychologists call this repetition compulsion, the unconscious drive to relive painful past experiences in a futile attempt to master them and rewrite the ending. By winning Nate, the most sought-after and emotionally dangerous boy in her world, she is trying to finally win the approval of the absent father. If she can make him love her, the ultimate unavailable man, then perhaps she can heal that original wound. Of course, this quest is doomed because Nate is incapable of giving her what she needs, and the relationship only deepens her shame and fractures her other connections, most notably her bond with her sister Maddie and her best friend Rue. Her friendships with other women suffer terribly because they cannot compete with the addictive high of male validation. In Cassie's distorted value system, a boyfriend's attention is the ultimate prize, and female friendships are often viewed as support systems for that primary goal or as threats to it. She betrays Maddie not out of sheer malice, but because the lure of Nate's attention overrides every other loyalty. Her need is so all-consuming that it blinds her to empathy and logic. Furthermore, her relationships with women who challenge her, like Lexi, become strained because they hold up a mirror she does not want to look into. Lexi's observant, critical eye sees the performance Cassie is putting on, and that feels more threatening than any boyfriend's criticism because it questions the very foundation of her constructed identity. The tragedy of Cassie Howard is that she is constantly seeking an external solution to an internal wound. She looks for herself in the eyes of boys, in the whispers of "you're beautiful," in the temporary embrace of a relationship. Each time, the fix is fleeting. The validation fades, the relationship inevitably fails to fill the bottomless pit inside her. And she is left feeling emptier and more desperate than before, leading to the next catastrophic choice. Her life becomes a series of escalating attempts to quiet the haunting question left by her father: am I worthy? Her breakdowns, her hysterics, her whispered, "I'm a good person," are the raw, unfiltered cries of that little girl still waiting for her dad to come home and tell her she is loved. Healing for someone like Cassie, a path we see only glimpses of, would require a fundamental and painful shift. It would mean stepping off the stage she has performed on her whole life. It would involve turning her gaze inward, away from the demanding eyes of men, and learning to validate herself. This process often requires therapy to consciously understand how her past dictates her present, building a sense of identity based on her own interests, talents, and values separate from romance. And learning to sit with the terrifying emptiness without immediately rushing to fill it with a boy. It means grieving the father she never had and forgiving herself for the coping mechanisms she developed just to survive. She must rebuild her sense of worth brick by brick from the inside out, discovering that she is not a supporting character in a man's story but the author of her own. Until that difficult work begins, Cassie's path will remain a heartbreaking loop, a search for a home in the arms of others when the real task is to build one within herself. Her story is a powerful, uncomfortable reminder that the hunger for love, when rooted in early abandonment, can become a poison that looks like everything you've ever wanted, and that the most important relationship we ever have is the one we have with ourselves.